Welcome, 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 everyone. You are here for Eye on Privacy, a look at the data privacy, and certainly we're going to touch upon the AI governance job markets. My name is Jared Coseglia. I'm the CEO and founder of TRU Staffing Partners, and we specialize in representing talent and opportunities in law firms, corporations, government agencies, consulting firms, software companies, you name it. If they have privacy professionals, we are staffing for them. And if you're a privacy professional, we want to represent you. I am joined here by someone I admire deeply. Truly one of the first people when I really got into the space in like 12, 13, 14, that was so kind and so welcoming and so knowledgeable about data privacy. I am pleased to welcome someone I consider a friend, but certainly someone that should be considered a mentor to all of us, Omer Tene. Welcome from Goodwin Procter.
Thank you, Jared. That's way too kind. We do go several years back now, and as you know from the first meeting, I recognize that you are the man to meet and talk to if you want to know anything about this market. So the appreciation is very mutual.
Well, I appreciate that, my friend, and I'm excited to dive into all sorts of data metrics about what's happening in the data privacy job market, which is we all, I think, can feel is under a bit of a revolution right now. And we'll talk a little bit about how that's playing out in the job market, not just in all of our lives. People are asking us where we get our data from. So here's where we get our data from. Or I'm sorry, here's what we're going to talk about. Here's where we get our data from. We have talked to, I think, over 500 CPOs over the last 2 years in the Fortune 1000 and beyond. We represented over 3,100 job seekers, unique individuals whose resumes were presented to customers of TRU over the course of 2024. So a lot of this data is being driven there, but we're talking to hundreds and hundreds of individuals on a monthly basis about what they're doing, why they're doing it, what's motivating them, what they're looking for, how it's going. And so we're going to present all of that data and much more to you here today. So first, let's start with the big trends. We sort of touched on this last month, Omer, and it was a little bit of an inspiration for one of the reasons why I wanted to have you here, which is we are seeing a lot of in-house counsel, privacy pros, turning to the AM law for employment. And that's sort of your narrative. Your narrative is a little unique. But tell us a little bit about why you think that's trending. We saw it with Keith Enright and Jane from Apple and from Google moving in-house to Gibson. We're seeing it with a number of others. Why is that a trend now? I'm curious what your perspective on this is.
Yeah, no, it's a big question, Jared, and I think it's actually part of the larger trends that we're going to talk about with the advent of AI and AI governance as like a function in organizations. But we have certainly, I think, seen some of the major players, the platforms, reconsider their privacy programs and where they sit in the organization and how they should be managed and maybe how many people should be in them. And as part of that process, I guess there's been a migration of some very senior people from in-house positions to outside counsel roles.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think we're probably going to see more of it, not just at those very senior level positions like the ones I've named, but in the middle of the market as well. One of the factors just being, I think, the deregulation that we're going to continue to see probably for the next 4 years here in the United States may drive more people to practicing on the outside counsel side of things. But also, I think we're about to go through an M&A explosion. Everybody seems to be sort of ramping up for that. And we are seeing a lot of candidates coming to us. We'll talk about this in the motivation section of the presentation, who are not unemployed yet, but are very fearful they are going to be unemployed. And as a result, are putting feelers out now. And part of that fear is coming with the anticipation of being acquired. or being the one who's doing the acquiring. It goes both ways.
Maybe just to add on that, Jared, I think there is definitely a, change in the maturity of the privacy market from kind of the boom years of GDPR implementation, adoption implementation. That was obviously a big spike in terms of interest in privacy and privacy roles. Um, and, at this point, I think most companies feel that they've been there, done that, they have it under control. US federal privacy law, of course, is still slow to materialize. Um, so I think to some extent we see a just reduction in the level of interest in privacy, which I guess reflects on some of the trends you're describing here.
Yeah, not to get too off topic because we have a lot to cover today, but why do you think we've not seen the same sort of Brussels effect in the job market that we saw with GDPR more recently with the EU AI Act? Because we haven't, right? There hasn't been the same sort of
Yeah.
surge of attention drawn to acquiring talent or scaling up existing talent in order to meet the requirements of the EU AI Act. Why do you think that is? What's different this time around?
Well, it's a big question, Jared, and I think the short answer is that we haven't and will not. I don't expect the EU AI Act to be anything like GDPR in terms of its effect on the especially legal compliance job market. There are many reasons for this, but I think, first of all, GDPR applied to every company, basically, because all companies process data and, it had very broad extraterritorial reach. So in fact, I think more American companies probably comply with it than companies, even in Europe and certainly anywhere else around the world. Everybody had to implement or at least think about GDPR. The EU AI Act is much more narrowly focused on a slice of companies that deal with high risk AI, as it's defined in one of the annexes to the AI Act. That's a far stretch from every company. It's really very specific industry sectors, I would say. And even there, I think a lot of the implementation work will be technical. It's more of a safety type regulation than kind of normative, kind of principle based. And finally, I would say, and maybe, we should keep this for later when we actually talk about AI regulation and governance. We felt some hesitation recently, even in Europe, with respect to implementing the EU AI Act. And certainly, the US is going in a completely different direction. So, for all these reasons, I don't for one moment expect the EU AI Act to have a similar effect on the job market as GDPR did.
I love all of that. Great perspective, and I echo it. And I think it's, sort of getting to, if we have to drill down to the guidance that it leads me to, is encouraging privacy leaders to find ways to tie their KPIs to driving revenue, increasing market share, preventing customer attrition, enabling marketing, things that move the business needle rather than the regulatory risk needle. And that's a very different sort of perspective and set of milestones to be measured by or consider being measured by if you're an in-house corporate program. But that may be necessary in order to get more money, get more buy-in, get more budget, get more staff, which feels like everybody needs and wants right now, which sort of leads me into the other big takeaway. So we had a big milestone in February that led us to this trend now that has changed for, I want to say 15 consecutive months. The number one reason privacy job seekers were looking for employment elsewhere was because they were burnt out with their current employer. Now, we can get into why they're burnt out in great detail, but that all changed. The number one motivator for people we spoke to in February was, I want to be paid more money. And this is an important change because, and we'll unpack this shortly, privacy professionals did not make a lot more money, whether they were raises or switching jobs over the last year or two. And they're looking for increases. They've now experienced 2 years of inflation, 2 years of gaining more skill sets, being expected to do more and cover more. A lot of them are now almost running two programs in AI governance and privacy, but have not received the staff to support that or the compensation increases that are reflective of that increase in responsibility. And so they've sort of given up the ghost, at least in February, with the people we're talking to, and this is hundreds of people who have now said, you know what, I might be burnt out, but I'll go be burnt out somewhere else and make more money. Show me the money. And that's a real change. And I think it's interesting that privacy people are now, I don't want to say acquiescing, but accepting that having a cushy quality of life privacy job is probably not in the cards for most people. These are demanding jobs. They often require more than a 35 to 40-hour work week, even in-house corporate. Going in-house to privacy does not mean you're going to have a cush quality of life job responsibility. I don't know if it ever did, but it certainly doesn't imply that now.
I'm shocked to see that people are motivated by money and not by ethical and moral principles of human dignity and privacy. But go figure, there's gambling in this casino.
There is. And, look, it's not to say that ethics and morals and, we sort of compartmentalize everything you just said into what we call personal and corporate mission alignment. That's sort of the bracket that we put all that in, where someone either feels ethically misaligned or operationally misaligned for the ethics that they're being held accountable for, however you want to look at it, because there's a lot of ways to look at that prism. That is on the top 5 list, but it seems to me that privacy professionals are moving from I'm burnt out and, can you find me a better quality life to I'm burnt out and I want to be paid for being burnt out. Yeah. But look, they've also gone through inflation and interest rates are high, inflation is high, and now the stock market is low. So, when all of those things sort of congeal, we're going to see people say, I need to compensate with more cash. And that's where the whole sort of economy is moving right now, is moving to cash. So more cash means I need to get paid more money. We are going to take some questions. If you have questions, put them in the Q&A channel, not the chat channel, and we will get to them there. All right, next big trend is 1.7 million privacy pros with AI governance skills and under 380,000 with AI gov but no privacy. Can we go to the data here, MT? I just want to jump us straight to the data. And yes, this is perfect. So if we just look at job postings over the last 3 years, in 2022, when we were at the Great Resignation, we tracked close to 45,000 job postings in data privacy, right? This is sort of before the advent of AI governance, really. If we look at 2023, half. If we look at 2024, almost about the same, less than half. And if we just track the AI governance jobs over the last year, it's only 2,433 that we track as uniquely AI governance and not privacy jobs with maybe a flair of AI governance, but really dedicated positions. So we got all this from a variety of different sources, jobs posted online, whether it's LinkedIn or company websites or aggregates, everything in between. And we sort of crystallize that so that they're unique job opportunities in case we see something that's like posted in different cities. So that's where we get this data. Now, we extrapolate that to the next sort of data point, which is looking at LinkedIn Insights. So on LinkedIn, people can categorize themselves based on code. And hiring managers can categorize their job based on those same codes. So when we look at human beings on LinkedIn who categorize themselves as privacy plus AI governance, we get about 1.7 million people and about 2,400 jobs. When we look at privacy and governance without the AI, we get about the same corpus of people, a significantly fewer amount of jobs, interestingly enough. So the demand for the market is certainly in the more progressive skill set, which has the AI in front of it. But when we look at AI governance skills without the privacy, that's when it drops to 383 and only 217 jobs. Why am I explaining all this? Because what it says to us is the talent pool that has AI governance skills that more hiring managers want come from privacy. They come from privacy. to the tune of 1.4 million more human beings self-proclaiming they have this dual skill set compared to ones that don't have privacy and only around 380,000. Why is this important? Because as people go to look for AI governance talent and they say, oh, the privacy community is where that talent lies, they're going to need to align the salaries that they're paying AI governance professionals with what data privacy professionals are already making. And I can tell you, those salaries are wildly misaligned right now at almost every level in the ecosystem. AI governance jobs are significantly lower in price point from an advertising perspective, what they're advertising they'll pay, compared to what we know privacy people with those skill sets are already making in their current position. So MT, flash forward to the comparative slide where we put them together, AI governance medians and privacy salary medians. So you'll see this right here, the AI governance salary medians, right? This is when we get the middle of what the ranges are. And then we take the at point of higher privacy salaries that we see transacting in the marketplace. You can see what a difference it is. It's, anywhere from, at the manager level, it sort of balances out in the middle, which makes sense, right? But on the low end and high end, I mean, we're talking anywhere from 15 to 48% difference in favor of privacy professionals currently making that much more money than what employers are advertising they'll pay for AI gov professionals. Why do you think this is, Omer? What do you think changes this in one direction or the other? And are you seeing the same sort of trend in the marketplace?
Yeah, again, there are a lot of sort of questions and threads in this knot, but just some quick reactions. First of all, I think it's not entirely clear what AI governance is, and people are still trying to understand it. And, I think part of what you're seeing here is a much more mature market that goes back 20, maybe 25 years. It's kind of the privacy market started with when the internet was really nascent, the late 1990s. So we've been here for a while. So part of it is just about maturity, I think, and kind of crystallizing a job description and what these things are. Another part of it, I think, is that privacy jobs oftentimes skew legal. And I think when you have legal professionals, there's a bit of kind of price bonus that just reflects additional education and training. Um, I think we and I guess my third point is what we started with. Again, we said GDPR was something that affected every company in the world. This is a bit more narrowly focused on high risk areas. Um, I think, over the next couple of years, we will see better definitions of AI governance structures within organizations. They'll figure out who needs to do it and what exactly needs to be done. And maybe you'll see them recalibrate and kind of an equilibrium emerge. I think it's just early days for AI governance.
I agree. I mean, that resonates with me. And the first part in particular about the maturity of the privacy market and that maturity coming with the benefit of a couple of accelerants based on time and timing. One of them being GDPR, CCPA, right? We saw a job market acceleration, regulatory driven, very regulatory driven. But then the post-COVID rebound, right? The great resignation, 21 and 22, where I showed you there were almost 45,000 privacy jobs. That's because of turnover. That's because of nothing that has to do with anything regulatory or legal at all. It was really just the nature of the world economy. And I feel like we're sort of in that right now. And you're right, AI governance hasn't been around long enough to sort of experience a regulatory surge, a post-pandemic surge, or what, a post-recession or whatever it'll be in the future that isn't driven by regulation. It's too new for that. And I think once we get to those events, I think we will see maturity in that market and salary growth in that marketplace. But your first point is also resonating with me because you're right. Every job description we get for an AI governance position is different. None of them look the same. and the prioritization of things is never the same. And it's one of the things we're constantly asking our customers to do when we get literally, and sometimes these things must be written by AI, right? And they like 10 stakeholders, they shove it all in ChatGPT and they shoot out a 6-page job description. You're like, guys, this is 6 jobs, right? What's the most important? What is the mission critical stuff? And as you start to parse through all the wants and needs and you just get to what's mission critical, it's rarely exactly the same for 10 different customers. Privacy, total opposite, right? A privacy lawyer that does XYZ, a privacy engineer that does XYZ, very codified, very clear, and very clear rangers for those roles.
Yeah, and if you try to kind of index and categorize AI use cases, which, have something to do with the jobs because the jobs have to handle the use cases. There are just so many of them. It's like, it's an entire technological paradigm that's kind of exploding before our eyes. And it means very different things to different organizations and people. And let me also project or predict that this market will not be driven by regulation. It's not a regulatory driven market. AI is not a regulation. And that's an important point. GDPR, privacy is a regulation. AI is not a regulation. AI is a technology. It's like the internet. It's like mobile. It's a technological paradigm, and the technology isn't driven by regulation. And if you kind of think it is, you end up with no technology at all.
Yeah. I'm going to quote you on that and put it on a t-shirt. Um, it is not going to be driven by regulation this next 3 to 4 year cycle. Maybe down the
Yes.
road, but not in the next 3 to 4 year cycle. It's going to be
No,
driven by growth and opportunity.
exactly.
Yes.
Opportunity, growth, enablement, investment, innovation. It's like go, 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 as opposed to stop and pause and, obstacles.
We covered this. AI governance jobs are a bit lower. What's the next one, MT? Ah, yes. February had a significant increase in FTE privacy job postings, but we still saw 65% of the jobs accepted that were contract. The contract and contract to hire marketplace is very hot right now for privacy. Part of it is because they just aren't getting the budget for the headcount, but they're getting enough budget to hire a resource that can come in and have an impact. We are seeing these contracts last an average of around 250 days. And then usually they either get converted or wind up leaving for another job or wind up staying perpetually. So these aren't like, short month-long engagements. These are media assignments that have some legs. And a lot of them are also just the same as a full-time job, except they couldn't get the approval for an FTE, so they're bringing in a contractor. And those opportunities can be really lucrative as well, and sometimes pay better than a full-time job. We've got over 75% of the candidates in our portfolio in 2024 said that they were open to work. Now, just to give you a sense of, we also do e-discovery staffing, that analysis only brought a 28% interest rate from tens of thousands of people over the course of 2024 that were interested in other opportunities. The privacy community is looking for work. And they're very open to opportunities. There's been significantly less movement over the last 2 years as there were the 2 years before that, 21 and 22 compared to 23 and 24. And so we're seeing a pretty urgent sense of people to say, show me what's out there. And then finally, and I would love your perspective on this, Omer, litigation risk preparedness is successfully driving buy-in for additional human resources, which is a little different than regulatory risk preparedness. Help us understand the difference and why that's working for some in a more meaningful way right now.
Well, this is, Jared, I feel the classic lawyers kind of preparing and arranging jobs for other lawyers. When you have litigation, that really grabs the attention of corporate leadership, boards. I think much more so than regulatory risk, because even the best funded, biggest regulator can only pursue so many cases. But if you have class action lawsuits and plaintiffs looking for action, the risks are really significant, and we've definitely, certainly seen this in the privacy space, so it's getting a lot of attention. I'm not surprised by this one.
Yeah, and we're on our eye on ESI next week. We have Kelly Twigger, who runs eDiscovery Advisory, and she's actually been tracking all the cases that involve eDiscovery and litigation, and they've gone from like 719 in 2016 to over 5,000 consistently for
Yeah.
the last 4 years. So litigation is now spiking. It's going to be weaponized by corporations. Certainly, e-discovery and discovery is being weaponized as a means with which to get in or out of litigation. And privacy is not going to be immune to that. And for me, I would make the assumption, tell me if I'm off here, Omer, that the AI governance piece is probably high in the litigation risk portfolio awareness to key stakeholders who are engaging in AI. And what is our risk for litigation? What data are we using? And what do we know now or not know now about what data we're using? And where does that put us in terms of risk as it relates to future AI, not even regulation, but IP litigation,
Yeah.
right?
So yeah, I was about to say 100%, but much more IP focused, and I think kind of the second would be cybersecurity. I think privacy is not sort of high on that ladder, but yes, so I think what I mean we've already seen, and we'll continue to see a lot of really high profile IP litigation in the context of AI and AI governance.
Agreed. All right, we've got about 3 minutes. MT, any data that we didn't share? Maybe we go to the remote section real quick. Our motivations. Yes, we talked about this a little bit. You could see money's now number one, job security concerns and unemployment number two, burnout's actually number three, opportunism number four, and then number five, Omer, is exactly what we talked about at the beginning of this session, which is mission alignment.
Mhm.
That's where ethics is coming into play. And, look, it made the top five. It didn't even make the top five in 2024. So that is
Nice.
sneaking up in terms of something that is driving and
Yeah.
compelling the marketplace. I don't know that those are mutually exclusive, though. Wanting mission alignment and more money. I
Yeah.
don't know if they're
I was
mutually
just
exclusive.
being snarky. Yeah, it's not mutually exclusive.
Okay, remote versus hybrid. This is the month over month for all of 2024. We've included the 2 months that we've tracked in 2025. The most important thing to really observe here are a couple of things. One, the new normal is 2 to 3 days in an office. And privacy professionals, job seekers seem ready to accept that as a new normal. And we've seen, if you go back to the motivation slide, in 2024, we didn't even get wanting to work remotely from home as one of the top five motivators. So that seems to be driving the market less and less in this vertical, in data privacy, AI governance. But you'll also see here with Jared, all these fully remote jobs are going up. Why is that? That's because fully remote jobs are contract jobs. And the contract job market is increased exponentially in 2024, particularly in the fourth quarter of 2024, a big uptick. A lot of that is because of the outcomes of the US election. I think a lot of economic uncertainty. We saw a lot of headcount that was FTE direct hire, now shifting to contract or contract to hire. But that's not bad news, everybody, because 42% of TRU's contractors who started between January of 2023 and December of 2024 were offered conversions into full-time employees, and 95% accepted. Astronomically high ratio, right? The highest conversion rate we've seen in any other year prior to 2024 was 18%. So just think about that, 42 to 18%. This is how hiring managers are getting the buy-in and the budget to get a direct hire. They're onboarding a contractor and they're making the argument of, hey, instead of give me the budget to fill this role and I think I need this much money to get who I want, they're saying, hey, this person's been with us for 6 months. They're fantastic. And we'd love to convert them. Look at their work product. Here's what they've done for us. And now you're not hiring an idea, you're hiring a person. And that has been very effective for hiring managers at law firms, at corporations, at consulting firms, at software companies. We've seen it in pretty much every vertical. Omer, any perspective, observations on this, trends you think might be going in the same or different direction?
No, I think these are kind of big market trends that affect, society at large. I don't think they're specific to privacy. The only sort of trend that we haven't touched on, and maybe because it's very recent, is federal government employees going into the private sector. Of course, some of the big U.S. agencies has had very large privacy programs. Talking about DHS and DOJ, the intelligence agencies, some of the benefits programs. And certainly, if people are sort of taking the fork in the road, which involves going back into the private market, that's a very well-trained professional, top-of-the-line workforce that I think will be added to the job market.
I agree. I want to I want to be slightly contrarian only to say that I don't want to give the private sector the impression that there's such a volume of privacy people being exited from the government that they're going to be able to go in and get them at a discount. Because I think that's the hope that a lot of hiring managers have is, will I be able to get these people at a discount because of this particular situation, because they may not have the budget to afford them even in government positions. So it'll be interesting to see, right, where the compromises begin to play out. But I also don't think there's a volume of privacy people at the government to fill the demand that's still out there, right? There's still pretty extreme demand for privacy professionals. But when we try to align all these variables, how many days in an office, how much money, what's the vertical mobility, what's the company mission and personal alignment, ethics. This is a lot of stratosphere to align so that employer and employee feel like they are 100% together and ready, or 80%. Let's not even ask for 100%, 80%, 75% together. So there's still lots of opportunity for hiring managers and job seekers out there in either direction. And I don't think this wave of layoffs from the government is going to solve all hiring managers' problems for all the jobs that are open. I wish it did. I wish the government had that many privacy people, but the people coming out of the government are fantastic. We represent a lot of them. And of course, we encourage people to consider them and seriously. Omer, we're at the end of our hour. We ran out of time. Join us next month when Susan Hinsey from the Hinsey Law Firm will be with us as our special guest. Such a pleasure to share time and space with you, my friend. For those of you that have questions, we will try to answer them offline. Final thoughts?
Susan Hinsey is a mentor of mine, so you started with mentoring. She's the best, and you're the best, Jared. Thank you. You're a top-notch professional in your space. I always enjoy our discussion.
Feeling is mutual. Thanks for joining us, everybody. We'll see you next month.